Outside the marble steps of the Jefferson Federal Courthouse, the late afternoon sun was sinking low, gilding the city in a deceptive glow of serenity. Judge Naomi Carter, a 47-year-old federal judge known for her sharp mind and unshakable poise, stepped toward the entrance with her case files tucked neatly under her arm. Her day had been long, filled with hearings and motions, yet nothing could have prepared her for what awaited at the courthouse doors. From across the plaza, Officer Blake Ramirez stalked forward, his stance wide and his face twisted with hostility. Ramirez was notorious among those who knew him, though not in public records, for his aggression, racial animus, and unchecked temper. To Naomi, he was just another officer on duty, until he suddenly planted himself in her path like a barricade. "You can't go in here," Ramirez barked, his hand already brushing against the holster at his hip. "This is restricted property. Move along." Naomi frowned. "Restricted? This is a federal courthouse. I have business inside." But Ramirez wasn't listening. He closed the distance between them, his voice rising, laced with venom. "Don't play smart. I've seen your type hanging around where you don't belong. Trespassing? Probably casing the place. You think you're above the law?" Before Naomi could answer, he shoved her hard against the stone column, the impact rattling through her bones. She gasped as his arm pressed across her chest, pinning her in place. His words turned into slurs, racial epithets spilling from his mouth as if rehearsed. Passers-by froze in shock, unsure whether to intervene or step away. Naomi, bruised but unbroken, tried to steady her voice. "Officer, you are making a grave mistake." He snapped handcuffs around her wrists, ignoring her protests, dragging her across the plaza like a criminal on parade. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered, whispers rising. Who was this woman being arrested so violently, right in front of the courthouse? Cameras clicked, phones recorded, yet Ramirez carried on, puffed with the arrogance of someone convinced his badge made him untouchable. In the courtroom, it was Ramirez's word against Naomi's. He painted her as aggressive, uncooperative, and suspicious. Fellow officers, bound by loyalty or fear, lined up to echo his lies. They spoke of her as if she were just another faceless troublemaker to be subdued and punished. Ramirez smirked as he spun his story, confident in the machinery of silence and cover-ups that had protected him for years. But Naomi was not just any defendant. Even in handcuffs, her back remained straight, her eyes clear, her mind razor-sharp. When given the chance to speak, she invoked the law with the precision of a scalpel. She demanded the preservation of all surveillance footage from the courthouse, plaza. She cited federal evidence rules that mandated transparency. She quoted precedent from the Supreme Court, her voice steady, undeniable, and then she revealed who she was, not a suspect, not an intruder, but a sitting federal judge, one with authority that far exceeded the man who had manhandled her. The room shifted in an instant. Murmurs spread. Ramirez's smirk faltered, then dissolved. The damning footage, played on the courtroom screens, unedited security video, body camera recordings, eyewitness clips. It showed Ramirez initiating the assault without provocation, slamming Naomi against the wall, spitting slurs, dragging her in cuffs. Every frame contradicted his testimony, every lie unraveled before the jury's eyes. Naomi did not stop there. For months, she had been quietly working with the FBI, gathering evidence of misconduct that stretched far beyond her own encounter. She presented years of records, data that mapped Ramirez's pattern like a trail of blood, 15 years of targeting people of color, fabricating charges, deploying excessive force, leaving a wake of ruined lives. Complaints had been filed against him again and again, only to vanish into bureaucratic shadows. She exposed the complicity of his supervisors, the culture of silence that allowed his abuses to metastasize. Graphs, reports, sworn testimonies, she laid them all bare. The courtroom was no longer just a place to contest her assault. It had become a stage for unveiling systemic rot. Ramirez sputtered, tried to object, but his voice was drowned out by the weight of evidence. Naomi pressed forward with the precision of a judge who knew the system inside and out. She outlined charges: assault on a judicial officer, deprivation of civil rights under color of law, perjury, conspiracy. Her words landed like gavel strikes, each one hammering another nail into his fate. The jury deliberated only briefly. When the verdict was read, Ramirez's face drained of color. Guilty, 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 on every count. The sentence was historic: 25 years in federal prison without parole. The courtroom gasped. Some officers wept. Others stared in stunned silence. Ramirez was led away in shackles, his swagger replaced by the hollow stare of a man finally stripped of impunity. But Naomi's fight didn't end with one man's downfall. Her case ignited a federal investigation into the entire department. Dozens of officers were suspended or terminated. Supervisors were indicted for covering up abuses. Corruption, once buried, was dragged into the light. Cases tainted by Ramirez's misconduct were reopened, convictions overturned, lives restored. New oversight boards were formed. Mandatory anti-bias and constitutional rights training became law. The reforms rippled outward, touching not just one city but setting precedent nationwide. And at the heart of it all stood Judge Naomi Carter, the woman who refused to bend, who turned her own assault into a turning point for justice. Months later, the courthouse plaza where it all began was renamed in her honor. A plaque bore her words: "The law is not a weapon for the powerful, it is a shield for the vulnerable." Naomi's story spread across the nation, igniting fierce debates, stirring communities to demand accountability. Some saw her as a hero, others accused her of waging war on law enforcement. But no one could deny what had been revealed. The image of her standing in court, bruised but unbowed, dismantling lies with nothing more than truth and law, became iconic. For some, it was proof that justice could prevail even against the most entrenched corruption. For others, it was a reminder of how fragile justice remains when power is unchecked. And for Naomi herself, it was never about glory. It was about a promise she had made long ago, that no one, not even those with a badge and a gun, stood above the Constitution. In the end, her story became more than a case. It became a symbol, a reminder that courage and truth, when wielded without fear, can expose rot, topple empires of abuse, and carve a path toward a justice that belongs to everyone.